Um, but so far, we see that there are 29 of us, including us from CLT, which means the number is going to rise very soon as you get free from classes. Thank you for being here. These co-teaching series, as you know, are our effort to share with each other how we are applying our literacy, AI literacy skills and AI learnings, and how we are trying to inculcate uh, with AI all the necessary human skills that we require our students not to forget, because there is a major research that talks about cognitive offloading with AI. And the only way we can keep abreast with AI is to use it, but then use it in an appropriate manner that will not let the students' cognitive abilities sort of peter down. So here we go today for today's session. In the theme that we sent out, I think Asia Hanum and Kuratulan sort of indicated that they want to speak to AI literacy and core skills, and they will explain themselves how, when I pass on the baton to them, how they're going to go around the session. They have designed it. I think they have collaborated on this to design this session for all of you. So a lot of thanks to both of them for making that additional effort. Just today, we are going to talk, and they will explain the agenda, what they are trying to do. So, moving on to Kuratulan, she is an associate professor of English literature at the Department of English, and she has over a decade of teaching experience. She specializes in a diverse range of research areas, and very impressively so, post-colonial, post-9/11, and post-human and absurd literature, which I attended her session on what it meant, and I have conveniently forgotten. But I'm sure there's much merit to what's there, she says there. And she's an author of a 2023 monogram, An Element of the Absurd, widely published, and she's recognized for interdisciplinary scholarship with her work appearing in the Journal of Post-Human Studies, Penn State University, which is a very renowned, journal listing, and Literature and Aesthetics, University of Sydney Press. I will also introduce right now Asia Hanum, who is a professor of computer science at our campus, and she possesses over 20 years of extensive experience in teaching research and academic management. And she specializes in artificial intelligence. And that is why we are sort of pushing her to collaborate more with us. She has a lot on her plate, so I'm using the word pushing because I keep on trying to co-opt her into our AI work. And now she is a program lead for working with the committee on taking AI to the next level. And what does it mean for us at FCC? Because allegedly, and I'm saying allegedly, we have done sessions across board on AI literacy, but that is not where, and AI hasn't stopped growing. It's sort of very fastly, at a very fast pace, advancing. And what we learned yesterday is not relevant anymore, perhaps. So we are already thinking about how to match up with the speed, and we can only try our best. So ASIA has a team, and they're going to think about it and give us such options. At CLG, we welcome anybody else who would like to join that team and sort of offer suggestions on moving forward. And she's also a widely published researcher and a professional leader, engagement in key international professional organizations. So over to both of you, and please do explain how you're going to conduct this session, and I leave it up to you. But the netiquettes, I'm sorry, very quickly, the netiquettes, Zarek, and then over to our two guests.
I'll just be briefly covering the netiquettes for today. You're requested to keep your video on unless there's a bandwidth issue, to kindly rename yourself with your first name and then your last name. And in order to be eligible to receive the certificate for the 1 CPDR, you're requested to ensure 45 minutes of participation. The session is being recorded, and within 24 to 48 hours, it will be uploaded on YouTube, and the link will be shared along with any resources. That's it. Thank you.
Uh, Good afternoon, everyone. So the topic of our segment today is AI core skills as the art of critical engagement with AI. So my collaborator, Dr. Kuratulayan, and myself, we have collaborated on preparing this topic. She has prepared it from humanities perspective, and I'll be speaking from computer science and STEM perspective. So I will go first, and then she will be explaining her part of the topic. So over the past years, many of the conversations around AI in education have focused on aspects like prompt engineering, AI detection, AI tools, and efficiency benefits from AI. However, in my course, I faced another important question, which was if AI can generate the answers, what thinking should our students develop in order to remain relevant and responsible in an AI enabled world? So, a recent disruptive incident earlier this year also further strengthened this thinking when a cloud based AI agent, Einstein, demonstrated that it was able to log into the Canvas LMS, operate across tools, generate the assignment solutions, and submit them before the deadline without requiring any intervention on part of the student. Uh, Normally, automation is a good thing in many cases, but this was not one of them. And it pushed me to think about what kind of learning must humans retain in order to exercise their judgment, critical thinking, and responsibility. And I realized that AI detection does not answer this question sufficiently, but engagement with AI itself might have the answer. So, this idea further clarified my own understanding of AI literacy. And I realized that AI literacy might not be merely about using AI tools effectively, but at a deeper level, uh, it is about critical engagement with AI. We and our students must be able to interpret AI outputs, to question its behavior, to explain our own judgment, and to justify our choices when we have AI output in hand. So, this naturally led me to rethink my assessment design. So let me share with you my journey of how I incorporated critical engagement in one of the assessments in my course. The course is basically an introductory computer science course, but the challenge is not merely technical, and the broader educational questions it raised are relevant across all the disciplines, as we will see in the later talk in this panel as well. So I've been teaching this course for some time. Uh, Before the advent of generative AI, this was a pretty standard assessment and assignment that we used to have. We would share a data set with our students. In this case, it is an image data set of handwritten digits, and we would require them to develop a classification model for that data set. Students would write code in Python, then they would test it on the given data set, note down its accuracy score, and submit a brief report. Uh, this was going fine, but when generative AI became mainstream, I realized that uh, almost all parts of my assignment are delegable to AI. Like the students could use AI tools to write the code, to choose the model, to collect the accuracy performance, and write the report as well. So my first redesign was to adapt to this new reality. So in the redesigned iteration one, I started with the AI generated solution itself. The students were allowed to work with AI generated code. So AI tools could help them generate the code to select the model, collect the performance reports, and uh, the students. But then their role shifted to critiquing the AI solution, refining it iteratively, validating it on edge cases, and reporting their insights. So this was looking promising um, initially, but when I looked closely at the students' submissions, I realized something important. Basically, the critique and the report were looking very generic and shallow. For example, they would simply say that if you use noisy images, the model accuracy goes down. This was not wrong technically, but what I wanted from them was a deeper explanation, like distortion, remove the curved features from the images, with the result that the classifier started confusing 3 with 5, and the confusion matrix started behaving in a revealing manner. So even after the redesign, the engagement was not happening. And when I did some introspection, I realized that something was missing in my assessment that was facilitating the students to display this kind of shallow engagement. Basically, the problem was that I was using a single stable context for the assignment, a single data set, a single performance metric, and a single training model. I was not requiring them to explain the how and why of the model behavior across differing conditions. So the problem was not the task itself, it was the absence of critical engagement. So, as I wanted to require more critical engagement from the students, I wanted to incorporate those elements into the assessment, which the AI cannot do that easily. So I came up with a three-pronged strategy for making assessment in such a way that the student cannot avoid engaging critically with the assessment. So first thing, I wanted them to transfer their model across different contexts. Secondly, I wanted them to explain the behavior of the model, why the behavior was changing across different contexts, and what was the exact nature of the change. And finally, I wanted to them to explain and justify their particular collection of the model, the metric, and the performance improvement approach for a particular context. So for incorporating the transfer element, I created 3 different versions out of the same data set by some pre-processing. First one was a clean version of well-structured and consistent data with very clear images, no confusion at all. Second was a distorted part of the data set where some images might not be clearly visible, some noise was present, or some images were stretched or rotated. And the third one was a deliberately confusion-oriented data set where there was semantic ambiguity in the images and some kind of writing was used that it was not easy to tell apart, for example, a 3 from a 5. So the important thing was that the students were required to use the same model across all these versions of the data set. And they were required to explain what happened when the context was changed, what were the confusion patterns that were emerging, and why was that happening. So once the students performed this, they started explaining and justifying AI behavior across varying contexts. And this part I moved to the class as a class discussion. So they are required to reason about model behavior, like why can a model achieve high accuracy but still perform poorly? When would recall as a performance evaluation metric be more important than precision? Why can high accuracy be still misleading for a model? And at that point, I also transferred the reasoning that they applied to the particular digit recognition assessment to the real world context also. And I took I take normally two differing normal real life situations. One is spam filtering, where a false positive might result in an important email incorrectly going into the spam folder. So there, a false positive is important. So precision will be more important as a metric. Whereas if we compare it to the cancer detection classifier, a false negative will be more important because it would result in missing an actual disease case. So making recall a more important metric for the same classifier. Uh, so uh, when students do this kind of comparison, they learn that the performance metrics are not just technical quantities, they have their own consequences. And when we are selecting them, we have to look at the stakeholders and we have to choose according to the situation, and we need to justify the choices also. So what we are assessing now in this assignment is not merely the output or the optimization of a performance metric. It's not merely technical. Now we have redesigned the assessment for visible thinking process, which requires the students to explain why the model behaves in a certain way. They need to compare the model behavior across different contexts in terms of data sets and the conditions. They need to justify their decision of a particular metric to use to optimize and a particular model to use. And they need to reflect on the implications, limitations, and their own responsibility when getting help from AI in generating solutions for real life. And in case of my course, this has been realized with the help of multiple data sets, error pattern analysis, decision logs, and oral discussion in the class. So this is where I started seeing a real difference in how students are thinking. Students are not now merely concerned about producing code and reporting its accuracy. They are now trying to make sense of the model and its application to real life context. So this is generating kind of thinking that goes beyond technical. They are learning to perform pattern recognition. For example, what kind of confusion patterns persistently arise across all the models in the data set. They are also beginning to engage in divergent thinking. Now they don't think that there is only one solution to a particular problem, but they think of the context, the limitations, and the trade offs that are at the back of a particular model and their choices. And perhaps most importantly, they are also beginning to display some reflective judgment where they evaluate the AI outputs against the evidence that is present and their own solid reasoning. And Another product of this assessment is that ethics emerges as a natural outcome of this explanation, interpretation, and judgment. When students explain, justify, and reflect, ethical reasoning becomes unavoidable. They are required to express what kinds of risks exist in a model and what they should be doing to prevent this kind of uh, adverse performance from the model. They are also questioning where can the model fail, what would be the limitations and blind spots, and how to prevent those. And furthermore, they also discuss who are the stakeholders of their model and who will be left out or harmed if they market their solution without doing proper testing and thinking. So this kind of critical engagement naturally opens questions of ethics and responsibilities, and we don't have to add ethics as an extra add-on because it is happening naturally from the assessment itself. So the emerging insights, the students are even these days, they are in the process of completing current iteration of the assessment. So what I'm observing is that there is deeper engagement, no more only the accuracy reporting or looking at correct, incorrect results. They are interpreting the model behavior and trying to make sense of its performance. And I can also see in the class the clear differences in their reasoning methods. I can tell where there is shallow reasoning happening and where there is a deeper reasoning. And another benefit is that since this is happening in the class discussions, everyone is learning from this kind of discussion. And uh, in this way, students are moving from using AI to explaining AI. And when they explain, they own their thinking and they are actually taking responsibility of their thinking. So the idea is not lesser AI or to avoid AI, but the idea is to complement it with critical engagement and incorporating the habits of questioning, interpreting, and taking responsibility for AI outputs. Thank you.
Asya, it was a remarkable presentation, very lucid, very clear. But it nevertheless, for many like me, I think it keeps me thinking that with AI, one would have thought that you don't need language, Python, and you don't need code, and you know computer science skills to understand it. But as AI is becoming more complex in the task that it does, I think knowledge of computer science makes you stand way ahead others in this challenge. So that's my take because a lot of what I'm reading now on AI, I am unable to decipher it because the language is so computer science focused. But thank you so much. Derek placed a question that is it compulsory? Is it therefore compulsory to use AI tools in the course, or is there room for a student not wanting to use an AI tool? And I think the question that he's asking is, do we give students a choice? And if you're giving students a choice, Derek, the question I leave it to Asiya and others to answer. My point that comes into my mind is the student might be saying, I don't want to use AI, but I have no way to double check if you have used AI or not. How do you take it unless you are doing a classroom uh, exercise or a classroom discussion or a classroom homework sort of a thing in the class assignment? How do you know that student is keeping to his word of not using AI? Number one. And number two, if you do that, of course, I think the option could be not to use, but I think in my mind, in a world where AI is going to be pervasive, we like it or we don't like it, it's coming. Does it make sense to allow a student to say, I'm not using it? It's like putting your head in the sand and saying a storm is not coming. So I do not know. This is a very good question, Derek, and I think it raises lots of concerns, philosophical concerns. But I think at the end of the day, our job is to make students adept at the knowledge that there is. They choose to use it in their life or not should be their choice. But having said that, I think it would be unfair not to equip them with the skills that we need. I wonder if there is a better answer. Derek, are you satisfied or do you have a counter argument to my logic? Unmute yourself, please. Unmute. Derek, I can't hear you.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, no, I totally agree. It's not, no way I'm against it. It's just that I just, the thought that popped up in my head that but by doing it this way, then we obviously expect everyone to use AI. But is there room for a student who decides to develop their coding skills, without using it? But maybe like comparing it with using a calculator or doing it in another way. But I totally understand that it's difficult to implement, and therefore it's probably more a philosophical question than anything else.
Yeah. But it's a lovely one. I think those are questions we should have a session just to discuss and throw those questions around. It would be beautiful to listen to what people, have questions to raise. With much thanks to Asia, can we go on to Kuratulan, please? Please see if you can help Kuratulan if she is facing an issue of sharing. I see lots of eager beaver faces, and I welcome you all, and I'm very excited to see. But God knows a lot of what she said just flew over my head because of the language. And I'm sure computer science and science people made better sense of it. Yeah. Now we come to humanities and what that means. So that would be interesting also. G. Kuratulan, over to you.
Can you hear me? Am I audible now? All right. Am I audible now? All right. Thank you so much, CLT, for arranging this session. And honestly speaking, I started thinking about this practice after I kind of started working on this project, that how I'm already putting this thing in practice in my classes. And when I put all of this together, this was a wonderful thing which AI was helping me with. So what I'm going to do is whatever Dr. Asia has already explained, I'm going to show you how we can do the same thing, the core skills with which AI skills with which we can engage in the discipline of humanities and social sciences. So co-teaching theory with AI. We use theories with social sciences disciplines as well as with the humanities. So I'll be working on pedagogical strategies for application and analysis. And here we will not be using AI only for generating answers, but we will be critical thinking about, I do it in my classes. Students critically think about those answers generated by AI, and they work with them. So critical engagement with AI and theory application. It's a two-pronged approach. Dr. Asia has talked about how AI application for an assignment, it helps in kind of enhancing the critical thinking as well as AI engagement. But in humanities courses, this is a literary theory application course. And in this course, theory application course teaching is a challenge. I am teaching this course for last 3 years, and every year it is a challenge. Teaching theory, why it is a challenge? Because it is not only helping students about learning how to think with theory, but it also is about what happens when students apply it, what strategies can be used. So this presentation is about what happens when we invite AI into that thinking process, and when we ask students that what works with when we use AI and what doesn't work. So theory application as it goes, and I'm sure all my colleagues, they know that it is a complex and non-linear process. And there is no single correct interpretation of a text or a data set which you people are working with. Students struggle with translating abstract concepts into analysis, building analytical frameworks, and this is also applicable with data analysis in the context of research. And instructors usually face problems while designing meaningful activities and supporting diverse interpretations. So why it works? Why integrating AI works? AI as a pedagogical collaborator, not a replacement. Make sure that it is not a replacement, but it is a collaborator. It helps with lesson planning and activity designing. It supports with multiple interpretation possibilities, and it helps also with critical engagement with theory. And all, it helps with encouraging metacognitive awareness. So before I incorporate AI, there is something which we need to prepare before taking help or before collaborating with AI. Pre-teaching strategies which have worked with me, that's how I go about it. I mostly use my own lectures, which I have developed from authentic published books over the years. And I introduce students to the relevant terminologies and a general framework, how to critically analyze a data set or a literary text. Then I use AI for designing activities which reinforce learning. But here, something which we all should be very careful about is that before we assign those tasks inside the classroom, we need to critically evaluate those activities and make amendments. Now, activity designing with AI and without AI, prompt engineering. Sometimes what I do is I pick up the how activity slide from my slideshow, from my PowerPoint presentation, and I engineered the prompt that this is the structure with which you go about. I give the proper instructions, and I ask ChatGPT to create a deconstruction worksheet, because worksheet is the best way. It goes step by step, and it helps students to learn data analysis or a literary text analysis in a step-by-step mode. When we move ahead, and this is the step-by-step analysis mode of deconstruction. When I teach deconstruction in my class, deconstructing a text or a data set, this is the step-by-step guide which I assign to humans as well as AI. So this is the kind of AI-assisted analysis worksheet which is generated. And as you can see, it's very structured. It is, I like it very much. When I give it to students, sometimes students do not have this very methodical, very categorized idea in their head that how to go about a theory and how to go about a theoretical application. But when I hand over this activity sheet to my students, the schemas start evolving in their minds. Pre-reading and conceptual grounding, close reading observations. They then pick out binary oppositions. Then they work on language and instability, ideology and worldview. So they go step by step, and this is very good for beginners. Before using AI, it has always been a challenge for me as a teacher to initiate my students into theoretical application of any theory on a text, students will always be asking how we should begin, with which question we should be beginning, what strategies we should be using. But this kind of helps me, straightens out the entire procedure for me. This is a very good beginning activity which I use after introducing, orienting my students to a theory. I use this in class activity and I ask my students to get involved with this activity. And it, as you see, in this activity, there are questions, there are sections which work with to the point, direct and objective type questions, as well as a final reflection note. So sometimes I take in my classes hard copies of this activity sheet. I personally like the hard copies inside the classroom because students really get involved with the activity worksheet. Then the next step, which is really, really helpful for the students, for me, and that kind of also trains students for the ethical as well as human machine integration. Then I ask students to do the human part of deconstructing a text. This is what a human attempt on the deconstruction of a text, Wordsworth's "We Are Seven" looks like. She's a very good student, and I really love her humanity and the way she likes, in a very humane way, with a very I would say she starts very nicely, and she has done some very good analysis. But the same text, when we assign it to the to any generative AI tool, this is how AI analyzes the same text. If you could, if and then I turn it into a class discussion. Students generate two versions. One, they do inside the classroom, which they do in the handwritten form. They do inside the classroom. That's their original, authentic attempt. This one is AI generated. And then they compare the two, and we generate class discussion. We generate class discussion on the basis in a structured manner, on sentence construction, grammatical structure, vocabulary, innovation, freedom, and spontaneity as well. And in this way, students also start recognizing the repetition of machine patterns. That in what ways machine patterns, AI is repeating the same sentence structures, the same vocabulary items, and it is using, I would say, the vocabulary items which are not very common, which are difficult, which are not which would not be used by a student at undergraduate level. And sometimes I kind of give it a very humorous turn, and I tell my students that's how we pick up that how this assignment is not done by our students but by a machine, when we look at vocabulary items like these in your assignments. So these, and students come up with very interesting insights. Sometimes I also extend this activity and I ask students to combine the two versions, the students version and the AI version, and combine the good points from both of these versions and make it into a finished product. This kind of raises this awareness inside students. I think it's ethical as well as critical awareness among the students that machine, it can do some work for you, but human mind also, it's never going to replace you. It's going to augment your learning. It's not going to replace you, because human ingenuity, human freedom of expression is always going to be, it's going to be counted. And the way humans think in innovative ways, machines perhaps would not be able to beat that. So it was a dual application task, and the possibilities are unlimited. When you are using AI in your classrooms, you can even ask students to generate such assignments. I ask students to generate worksheets. When they present on a theory, they bring wonderful worksheets. They work with certain generative AI tools. And I ask them, we are very open about it. I ask them, which generative AI tool did you use? Which one did work best for you, and why it worked better than the other one, and we work together. But then I also tell them that it is always more time consuming, because sometimes AI tools, they do not work in the way we want them to work. It has happened with me as an instructor as well. So we just keep on working towards improving it. And it has taken me 3 years to reach at this point where now I'm confident about using AI in this way in my theory classes. Critical reflection and learning outcomes after the class discussions. Evaluate AI generated discussion interpretations inside the classrooms. We identified biases, generalizations, gaps, and value human judgment in analysis. And it reinforces academic integrity, critical thinking, and reflexivity. This is the crux which I really wanted to share with you people. A comparative analysis. It is very important that after using AI, we sit down after the classes or after the course, we sit down and we think what worked with AI and what didn't work. And then the choice is ours, how much AI we want to use in our classes and how much of it should be limited. What are we compromising when we are using AI, and what we are missing on when we are not using AI. So AI-assisted theory application, when I used it in terms of structure and organization to begin with this table, when I used AI, the students' output was highly structured, provided clear frameworks and guidance. But when students independently applied theory, the output was often unstructured, and students may struggle with the organization. Learning curve. AI assistance, it supports the beginners and reduces cognitive load. Students are more confident when they have AI support. As instructor, I am more confident when I have AI with me as a support. And learning curve is steeper based on trial and error when students are doing it independently. Critical thinking. Critical thinking may be limited because AI is doing everything for you. But when students are doing theory application on their own, then obviously it encourages deeper analytical thinking, innovation and critical and creativity. AI assistance, it restricts, and I would really use the word, it kind of compromises originality because of the pattern-based and machine-based structures. But student-based analysis, they have high potential for innovation, clarity of concept. When we use AI, concepts are very clear. With students, concepts become very clear very quickly. But when students are applying theory independently, they develop gradually. Error correction. In AI-assisted work, error correction is quick. Feedback obviously is also very quick. But in independent theory applications, sometimes I have to assign multiple assignments so that students learn theory properly or appropriately in corrective way. Engagement may lead to surface level engagement. Students are engaged with the text only on surface level, but if they are doing it independently, they have deeper engagement, and it may lead to frustration. Students tend to get frustrated if they are doing it without AI assistant, and after a while, they're like, we don't want to do it anymore. With the confidence, yes, when they have AI support, they are more confident. But when students are doing it or on their own selves, the building of the confidence is slower, but they have then solid confidence once they are done with their own learning of the theory. Confusion, AI assistance reduces confusion, but when students are applying theory on their own, there is higher risk of confusion. Human element in AI, obviously, there is limited room for personal voice, but in student-oriented work, there is stronger individual perspective. Consistency, bilkul, there is a lot of consistency when it's AI assisted, but variability, diversity is the hallmark of human engagement. Ethics, obviously, AI assistance needs guidance for integrity, but human generated work is naturally authentic. Skill development, yes, will have to face compromises because it may create dependency when we are using AI excessively. Students may tend to depend a lot on AI. And when we are asking students to find their own way, navigate their own way with their independent theory application, it may strengthen their independent skills, adaptability. AI quickly adapts, but students, they take time. Time efficiency, yes, AI is time saving, but self-learning, human learning, it's time intensive. So, post lesson reflection with AI assisted work is most effective as a scaffolding tool, especially for beginners, while independent analysis remains essential for deep learning, originality, and intellectual maturity. Use AI to reflect on lessons' effectiveness, generate alternative approaches, identify gaps in student understanding, and key takeaways are AI enhances, not replaces teaching, makes theory application more accessible, encourages critical engagement and comparison, but human judgment remains central, both on the part of the teacher as well as the students. So kind of we are walking on this tightrope where we have to balance both as teachers and as students. So co-teaching with AI is not about outsourcing thinking, it is about teaching students how to think more critically about thinking itself. That's all from my side. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Excellent, both of you. And, I was thinking about your presentation, the effort you have made, to clarify your whole process. I especially thank all those who have done co-teaching with AI so far. Every one of you has been exceptional. And I am really been impressed with the quality. I have been asking around on other campuses, and I wager there are very few who are doing this sort of work. So, with faculty like you, we are moving ahead. You talked about in your presentation just now about how innovation, creativity, and critical thinking, and some of the other deeper thinking skills are actually not excited or agitated by the use of AI. And I think that is the core, that is the area where we have to concentrate. So I think we have to found those gaps. So the next step is to find how to remove those gaps. And I think a part of it is what both of you have shown that you're doing. You're trying to bring in that creativity, innovation, and critical thinking. Um, the studies are there, and the studies about AI use are very, very disturbing. Latest research that I read today talks about how within a few minutes, of said using AI use, the mental capacity to cognitive capacity drops drastically. And I think, and that is a lasting effect, is the sort of a research that I read coming out of MIT and some other institutions. And that's really, really scary. So I think if we have to, since we are not making any guardrails educationally, this is a corporate invention for corporate use. We have seen how it was used recently in the war as a very effective weapon. So I think there is other uses for which This seems to be very welcome, but for education, we really need to think very clearly, how do we want to live with it? And I think that's a challenge. That's why the series co-teaching, and I think about what in our mind at CLT was the effort was, how do you still look at the human element and the human flourishing? How do you keep that balance with keep the human oversight? And I think this is a balance we have to work with as we move along. Are there any comments or suggestions? I see that there's a lot of comments, but there are lots, usually thanks and excellent presentations. Absolutely. Is there something else? There is a Teshamul Haq. Would you please unmute and write, say what you have written? Tesham? Hello? Yes, amazing presentations, absolutely. It seems that the Sham, we should also take, he has written, he has commented. I suggest we should take on quantitative and qualitative data on how AI is improving the learning and teaching. A statistically sound data and its analysis will give us better insights into what and how the AI improves education in different teaching pedagogies. Absolutely. But there's a lot of research happening elsewhere, and there's no harm in our replicating it in our classrooms as well. And I would strongly encourage the researchers among you to take that deal on. And you could then sort of talk about how it's happening and what is the difference at FCC University. I see that there are no more comments or questions. Immense thanks. And please do fill this, give your comments on feedback so that we can take it back to our experts. So the level of satisfaction, or did you learn anything new or valuable from this session? And some of you respond, not all of you respond, but we see very good results. Thank you so much. I see a lot of faces. Sylvia, Etisham, Uzma, good to see you. Naomi, Fatma is like Nimra, and my CLT team is learning along with you all. Sana Shahid, Madia Noor, Alamdar, Derek, it's always a delight to see you. You are, all of us, I can see that, we are struggling with what to do with AI, upseating our content so drastically, and then Asma Bisharat, Sayyid Alamdar, and so many others that I see with us. Shabaz, Numan, Salman, Amreen Javed, Nasir, Kamran Azhar, Sarah Joan, Amna Malik. So welcome to you all. Sufyan, I see a lot of pharmacy. I see maths, Sabah, Tala Numan, economics, Bilal Riaz, Khatija Shukrullah, Shabnam Malik. Always a delight to have you with us, Shabnam. Faiza Tasneem. Faiza, you have not come forward, and I've heard you are doing great work. So we really need to listen to you. Shahid Nazir, thank you. You're always there. Narayb, Fatma, and Nashi, you're always in our sessions. Thank you. Please do give your comments, Shaista Jabeen and Imrana Shafiq, and we'll bid goodbye. Thank you